Good afternoon. Thank you for coming to the Windsor Library. My name is Vicki Chavez and I'm the Adult Services Librarian here. I have been working with Diana Borges of COPE and Christina Owens of the town, and this is our third Windsor Ready talk. Today we are going to be talking about navigating self-care, and Jenny Harrow-Keeler will be the presenter for that. And then later, being smoke ready, and Diana will be presenting on that. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope you guys all go back out into the town of Windsor informed and share the good information you find out here. Thank you very much.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jenny Harrow-Keeler. I'm with Integrative Healers Action Network. I'm one of the co-founders and I'm the current executive director there. Thank you, Diana, for inviting me to be a part of this presentation today. I'm excited to share some really simple resources about how to manage our emotional and mental health and well-being during and in the aftermath of a disaster like a wildfire like we've experienced here in Sonoma County. So I'm open to questions throughout. I'm happy to make this more of a fluid conversation since we have a nice small group. And my goal is just to help share something, even if there's just one thing that you can take home with you today, to help just identify maybe what's happening in our nervous system when something like a wildfire or smoke is coming through. Just wanting to normalize it all. This is a challenging experience to be living through wildfires like we have been for the last 7 years. And so I'm going to step to the side. And real quick, the Integrative Healers Action Network, we are an organization that formed during the Tubbs fire. So in 2017, myself and another practitioner, her name's Dr. Jen Regal, she's a naturopathic doctor in Santa Rosa. We started going to the shelters to volunteer just to help out, and we saw that there was a gap in care in terms of supporting people with their both mental and physical health. And so integrative health is an approach that is supporting people with their mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health. And so we brought in modalities like massage therapy, acupuncture, things like that to help just people feel a little bit more safe during a very scary and unsafe time. So I'm just going to be introducing a few concepts of, one, how to identify stress and some of the emotions and experiences that might come up, not even just during a wildfire, but say when we're getting smoke. I remember in 2018, after our first fire, when the campfire was happening up in the Butte County region and we got all that smoke coming in, it was really activating for me because we were still coming off the stress and trauma of such a destructive wildfire in our community. And even though that was 3 hours away, I was feeling it in my body, like, are we safe? Is this okay? So just kind of starting to learn what's happening and why it's happening, and some very simple tools and techniques that can hopefully support us in the process. And so just this point of, you are not alone. If you are shaking your head at all of like, yeah, I remember that in 2018, the smoke, or any of the experiences that we've had from 2017 to 2020, I mean, just framing it, we've had 4 major wildfires from 2017 to 2020. That's a lot. Like, this is not like quote unquote normal. I grew up here in Sonoma County, and I actually moved back here about a week before the Tubbs fire started. And that was just so like, holy cow, what is happening? This is my community, this is my home that I grew up in. This was not our normal for many, many years. So we're all just kind of adapting and learning how to build resilience and create some new awareness and tools to navigate what's been a pretty challenging experience. So I just want to spend a little bit of time about understanding trigger points. Things like where we're talking about smelling smokes, sometimes like when we get the alerts, I know like the nixles we would get of like, oh, this is happening. Now, I don't know if any of you have the Watch Duty app, which I'm a big fan of. It's super helpful. But it can also be a little bit activating too of like, oh shoot, there's a fire and like I need to like be aware of what's going on. And so think of a trigger as something like a fire alarm. Like it is there to help us keep us safe. That's something that I want to express about when we're talking about our nervous system, our autonomic nervous system. It's a very wise design that we've had as humans for millennia. Like think back to like cavemen and women times, like our nervous system actually hasn't changed at all since that era of being human, and its function is to keep us safe. And it does a very good job at it. And so it's just different now, right? Like as our humans, we've evolved quite a bit in the last several thousand years, but our nervous system hasn't changed. So what we're learning now in 2024, and especially in the last couple of decades, is there's a lot of research going into understanding what's happening in our nervous system so that we can kind of hack it in a way of like, all right, my nervous system's giving me some information. What can I do? Sometimes we are truly in danger and we need to be alert and awake, but sometimes our bodies are giving us information of like, I'm actually safe, even though my body is telling me I'm not. So we're gonna just explore some types of like, how do we cultivate more awareness so that we can feel empowered about how to regain control when our body's sounding the alarm of like, I'm not safe. It's like, okay, how can we assess the situation effectively to see and determine, do I need to flee? Do I need to evacuate my home? Or am I actually safe in this moment? And I'm going to use some very simple tools to help support my body, my mind, to feel calm and safe. So this is kind of reiterating a little bit of the same point. Our nervous system reacts to perceived threats even when we're not in immediate danger. That's a point that I really want to drill in. Sometimes we are, right? Sometimes we do need to pack up our things and move, but sometimes with let's say the Watch Duty app, I remember earlier this year, I think it was on Father's Day when the fire started in Dry Creek Valley, and I saw the smoke coming in. I live in Santa Rosa, northwest Santa Rosa, so far enough from Healdsburg, right? But it still was kind of activating that alarm of like, what is going on? I like this guard dog analogy of like, sometimes it will overreact, our nervous system, when we see things like the smoke coming into our back window of our backyard, or we're hearing the alarms of the Watch Duty or nixles or other things like that. The point I really want to kind of emphasize here is that this is where cultivating more self-awareness of just understanding what's happening in our body can be really helpful. When we have the awareness of like, oh, I'm noticing that my heart rate is going up, or I'm feeling extra stress or this urgency to go and act and do something, it can help cultivate a pause so that we're not just immediately reacting, but that we can take a moment to pause and then effectively respond appropriately to the situation at hand. So this is just a quick overview. I don't want to spend too much time in the weeds of what's happening in the body, but I like to just paint the picture of what's happening a little bit in our autonomic nervous system. It controls automatic body functions like our heart rate, breathing, digestion. This is happening just automatically. We don't even have to think about it really. Our body has a lot of wisdom, and it's doing a lot to help, like I said in the beginning, keep us safe, keep us going. And in the autonomic nervous system, there are two parts that work together to help try and create balance between what's going on in our nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system, think of it as like the gas pedal. That's the analogy that has helped me think of it. So when our sympathetic nervous system is activated, the purpose is to help kind of like activate that fight, flight, or freeze response. So it's increasing our heart rate, it can quicken breathing, it can release adrenaline, and it's preparing the body to respond to danger or stress. And so that's why like having this gazelle as the image of like, this is quite wise, right? Like if a tiger or something, a predator is chasing after a gazelle, like it's not the time to digest their breakfast. Like, you know what I mean? It's time to get into action. And so you'll see this in the wild of like, it's time to flee. It's time to go into that flight mode. You'll see sometimes the animal will go into the fight, and then freeze is actually a very wise part of our nervous system as well. When we get into this sympathetic nervous system, that's happened to me with some of the fires. I've noticed, I've gone through all of these, like that's how it'll happen. But that freeze, that like, I feel kind of helpless and immobile of like, what do I do? This is so overwhelming. Knowing that this is a part of our nervous system, trying to, again, keep us safe. So an example of when our sympathetic nervous system can get activated is, again, when we're getting an alert about a wildfire or seeing the smoke that can trigger this response. The parasympathetic part of our autonomic nervous system is like the brakes. I always remember parasympathetic. The trick that helped me to remember that is that para is one of the Spanish words for stop. So it's like stop, slowing things down. I put the image of when in yoga you get to like lie there at the end, the shavasana of just like, I just get to like release and do nothing. The parasympathetic part of our nervous system is activating the rest and digest. So this is a safe time to digest our breakfast. What's happening in our body is that our heart rate is slowing down. Like I said, digestion is able to happen. This is a state that is safe enough to encourage relaxation and recovery.
Is this when danger is over?
It can be when danger is over, and it can also be when we are tuning into our awareness to assess the situation. So in the wild, like if we go back to that example of the gazelle, yes, because they're not as
It's either the
complicated as
danger
us.
is over or we're realistic about the danger, perhaps.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly it. And in the animal kingdom, if we're going back to the gazelle, what happens is that they'll go through, say, like this flight response. And there's video footage. There's a trauma specialist by the name of Peter Levine that I've been able to study some of his work. It's been really helpful in just understanding what's happening by looking at what animals are doing, because their nervous system is Peter Levine, Levine. He has a really great book called Waking the Tiger that is introducing all of these concepts. And there's some videos online that are showing what's happening in the wild with animals that are in that like fight or flight response. And then what's happening afterwards is that they go through like a shaking, like their whole body shakes, and there's some innate wisdom in that. Because you'll see this, like a video footage of the gazelle, it's like it flees, it's in that flight mode, it survives, and then like it shakes, and then minutes later it's like it's on with its day, it's going to eat the grass or do whatever, like as opposed to us humans, right? Like it might take a lot longer for us to recover from a trauma like being chased by a tiger. And so to answer your question, and you nailed it, it's like it's either the danger is gone, or as humans we've been able to assess the situation and kind of, you know, like for a good example of this is when the fire is still burning out there.
Right.
But we can stop and like take a few breaths and be like, you know what? For the example of what happened earlier this year with the, I forget the name of the fire that was happening in Healdsburg, but the one this summer that was a little bit bigger-ish in Dry Creek Valley. It's like taking a moment, being like, you know what, I'm in Santa Rosa, this is in Dry Creek, I'm following the watch duty apps, like I'm getting the updates. Looks like they're doing a great job, and then I'm getting the alerts of like, even before the fire was fully contained, establishing safety. So then we can kind of, and then things like breathing or different forms of meditation can help activate this response faster, because we're kind of, again, not tricking our nervous system, but a little bit. Like we're able to just kind of give it some support to get there faster than maybe without utilizing some of the tools. And
It's
so
amazing, isn't it?
It's
what the
amazing.
body does.
right?
Do you know that a doe doing delivery, if she senses danger, her labor stops, and then she goes and either finds a safe place or waits until she realizes that it's safe. Isn't that something?
Amazing. There's
It's a
so
good
much.
example.
That's such a beautiful example of like,
Nature.
and as humans, like we're up here a lot in our heads. The research is confirming that as humans, the average amount of thoughts that a human has in one single day is around 50,000. It's a lot. So if you feel like you're up here a lot and you're not alone, like the research is confirming this, most of those thoughts are repetitive, and a lot of those thoughts are not too kind to ourselves. That's what the research is confirming. And so I'm going to spend a little bit of, thank you for those questions, keep the questions going, I love the interaction. I want to spend a little bit of time just exploring some pretty just normal emotional responses that might happen during something like a wildfire or another emergency. Identifying emotions is helpful. It's helping cultivate more of that awareness that I was talking about before, because awareness is an essential component of creating that pause. So again, we're not just reacting, we're able to respond. There's a big difference between reaction and response. And so understanding that emotional responses are natural can help us just kind of cope more effectively when something stressful is happening. So these are just some that I wanted to name that I think I've felt through, whether it was wildfires or the pandemic or other kind of collective stressful situations. And so feeling things like fear or anxiety, grief, sadness, overwhelm, helplessness, guilt. I know guilt is a common one because this can happen here in our own community, right? Let's think back to 2017 with the Tubbs fire. I remember feeling kind of guilty that my house didn't burn down. You know? Because people you love, their home did. And that is a normal response, but it's not actually that helpful. It doesn't help the people whose home burned down. They don't want you to feel guilty. Or that happens, let's say, you know, there's conflicts happening overseas, and sometimes we could feel like, why is it so hard there and I'm safe here? And it's like, it's a part of our ability to feel empathy and compassion. And I had a really interesting conversation last week with a psychiatrist from the VA up in Washington. I'm working with him on another project. He shared some really interesting research that's showing the difference between empathy and compassion from a neuroscience perspective, that they've been able to measure like what's happening in the brain between empathy and compassion. And empathy, he shared, that they're showing is like when you feel the other person's pain, and it's like overwhelming. Like it's like you almost feel like you're drowning of like, oh, like, I know I can relate to that, right? I can see some heads nodding of like, we feel that of like, whether it's in wars or other, you know, with the hurricanes happening back east right now, like I'm feeling that, right? Like we know what it's like as a community to go through a disaster like that, and it's just heartbreaking. He said the distinction between empathy and compassion is instead of just feeling like, because it's our mirror neurons that are getting activated, like when we're looking and feeling another human suffering and we're like, it feels like I'm suffering now too, but compassion is when we can combine empathy with action. And so that's going to be some of the tools I'm going to be sharing. If we can feel the pain of others and then move into action a little bit. A great example of this that Peter Levine, who I mentioned earlier, talks about, or no, excuse me, it wasn't Peter Levine, it's another trauma specialist. His name is Bessel van der Kolk, Bessell, I believe. Van, V-A-N-D-E-R, Kolk, K-O-L-K. He writes a lot about the trauma of 9/11 and how the research is confirming that the people who were running across the Brooklyn Bridge away from ground zero, some of them had less symptoms of PTSD than people like myself who were sitting at home watching the disaster happen on the TV screen. Because those people were moving their body. It's back to the gazelle. They're able to like discharge some of the like trauma and stress through embodied movement. And so that compassion, it doesn't always have to be like a physical like movement like that, but just some sort of action can help move the energy of what can feel really sad and overwhelming. So just wanted to name all of these. This is normal. If this has happened to you during any natural disaster, you know, this is just a normal human response. These are some more regenerative emotions that can help restore balance. And I just want to emphasize things that can help build resilience. I know resilience is a buzzword, like it's been used a lot since the pandemic especially, but it is a powerful word and concept to explore during this time because our world is changing. And I think as humans, we are needing to adapt to challenging experiences. And so regenerative emotions are not to bypass the hard emotions. I just want to emphasize that. This is normal. And if you need to feel the grief or the sadness or even the anxiety or overwhelm, like, I'm not implying that you need to rush through that process. Receiving support and care, which I'll share some resources if you're feeling any of these, is really helpful. We're not, as humans, designed to heal alone. We're social creatures, biologically, evolutionarily, like we are social. And so receiving support and care through things like this is a part of the process of healing and recovery. And then when we can feel safe enough to access some of these other emotions, hope, gratitude, relief, courage, connection, determination, and acceptance, tapping into these emotions can help, again, bring some safety into our body, kind of establishing that parasympathetic part of our nervous system to come on, to find some balance, so we can find the inner strength to navigate challenges with more clarity and calm. I'll share some resources on how to get here. It's not easy, but it's totally possible. And we're really lucky to have some incredible organizations who are leading the charge and creating research and data and clinical outcomes that are supporting communities to access these. Because what I've been learning doing this for a while now is that the more relaxed we can feel in our hearts, the more clear we can feel in our minds, even when the outer world is very stressful and chaotic and can sometimes feel dangerous. We have the ability and power as humans to get into that feeling of safety, and I'm going to share some resources on how to do that. So coping techniques, I love this cute little sloth that's meditating. So again, they kind of think of them as like tricks to calm your body down. So things like deep breathing, grounding, connecting to the earth can be very helpful. Think of deep breathing as a way to turn down the volume on that alarm that I was talking about earlier. It helps your brain realize that you're safe. And another tip is that a way to practice grounding that could be really simple, and this is a technique that's used when people are having panic attacks, is simply like you're in a room like this even, and you just look around and see if you can notice 3 things that you can identify that you see, 3 things that you can hear, 3 different things that you can touch. Maybe it's your skin or your clothes, the wall right next to you. When we go into our senses, our mind can't hijack us completely. That mind, that thought in here that's like, you're not safe, this isn't okay. Coming into our senses comes back into like, okay, in this particular moment, I'm safe. And then another technique of simply breathing in for 5 seconds and breathing out for 5 seconds, I think we're going to practice that together at the end of the presentation, is a very simple technique to, again, allow your body to feel like you're coming into that state of safety, more calm, turning on the parasympathetic part of our nervous system. Am I going too fast? Is this a good, okay. And feel free to, again, keep jumping in with questions. I'm going to just share some tips, some tools that I have personally found really helpful, not only individually in my own life during stressful things like the wildfires, pandemic, etc., but also things that I've seen really work for the communities that we're supporting as an organization. Support networks are huge. We, like I said earlier, we're social creatures, biologically, evolutionarily. Like, the research confirms that, like, in that, again, snapshot back to the cavemen, cavewomen times, like, the research shows that when we were in groups of 9 to 11, that's when, as a tribe, or, you know, back in when people were living outside and trying to feel safe with T-Rex running around, like, that was how that people felt safe, because there was enough people, like one person might be taking care of the baby, and then one person can look over their shoulder to make sure that the person taking care of the baby is safe. Someone else can go out and get some food. The list goes on. Like, we work better when we can work together. And so some simple ways to maintain connections with other people. Just have it in your mind to reach out to someone every day, especially when you're feeling stressed. You know, having that simple just point of contact with another human, a loved one, is very reassuring and supportive to our nervous system. So calling or texting a family or a friend just to check in, connecting and building and being in community can provide that emotional support and that sense of belonging. Just even I noticed that, like, during the fires, getting together with friends and just going around and being like, I'm not okay. And then being like, yeah, me too. Like, that can help us not feel so isolated. I just want to name that the U.S. Surgeon General has called isolation and loneliness the new smoking. I don't know if you've heard that, but they've in the last year or so, because we haven't recovered from the pandemic quite yet. And I think that as a country, as a culture, I think we were pretty isolated even before the pandemic. I think that that just kind of exacerbated a problem that was already existing. So isolation and loneliness can impact our health. It really can. And so I'm going to give some tools and resources. If you don't have an existing community to connect in with, there's ways that we can tap in and find community, even if it doesn't exist right now. So I'll give some tools for that a little bit later. I'm a big nature person. In the other work that I do, I'm a certified nature and forest therapy guide. That's what I wrote my master's thesis on, is the power of nature in, as a form of restoration and healing. I acknowledge during wildfires, we're not really going outside as much, right? There's smoke, and so that could be hard to go and access all of the beautiful regional parks that we have in our community. So bring nature inside is my advice. Houseplants, flowers, even a small indoor garden to create that natural ambiance. When we're caring for plants, it can foster that sense of connection to nature. And then playing nature sounds in your house. There's lots of research about what's happening in nature. I can get into the weeds about that. I won't, because that can be a whole other conversation. But birds in particular, from an evolutionary perspective, back again in the cavemen, cavewoman times, when T-Rex was a thing, or the predators when we're outside, when people could hear birds chirping, they felt safe, because it meant that there wasn't a giant predator nearby, because the birds have the bird's eye view. They see and sense all in the forest or whatever outdoor environment people were living in. So the research is showing that we still have that hardwired in us as humans in 2024. Even though most of us aren't living outside, but when we hear the sounds of birds, it can activate, again, that parasympathetic part of our nervous system, helping us feel safe. But flowing water, the ocean, anything that you like, really, that is a sound from nature can be quite healing and calm. I love my pets. Yep. Fine. Okay, I'll go through these kind of quick. You can read how, all the different things, if you have pets at home, they can be a great resource for connection, emotional support, offering some physical activity, walking or playing with them. You see these, like, the dog therapy movement growing. It works. Like, we bring dogs into the fire stations that we work with, and it promotes such a feeling of calm and relaxation just to have dogs or cats. And we don't bring the cats to the fire stations, but if you have them at home, they can help you feel more present, and just that exchange of love that's so accessible with your animals. Volunteering can be a really helpful thing to do during a stressful situation. It seems counterintuitive, but you can read some of the things I shared here. It's building connections, so if you don't have that community, volunteering can connect you with other people who are feeling that compassion, who want to support other people. It strengthens our social bonds, reducing that isolation. It gives us purpose. I'm going to share just real quick. There's studies about the blue zones, if you've heard about that before. The blue zones are the parts of the world where there's the highest percentage of people living over 100. And the one common thing, it's not always diet and exercise that people think are like the common health things. Those are helpful too, but the one thing that is the common thread around the world is sense of purpose. These people who are over 100, a lot of them, they're volunteering. Some of them are still working 1 day a week at their jobs that they've had in their careers throughout their life. It's a powerful, powerful tool to feel a sense of purpose. And all of these other things, we're sharing, this collective recovery and growth, connecting us to our community. So volunteering in any way that feels accessible to you. So my invitation to you is to identify some just coping strategies. Everyone's different. So I'm not giving this exhaustive list and saying to go home and do them all. Maybe you do want to, that's cool, but maybe there's one thing that really resonates with you. Cultivate that, give that energy, spend time nourishing that. And then identifying what your personal triggers are can be really helpful, especially when we're not in an activated space right now. If you're feeling a little bit more calm and just thinking back to the fires or thinking back to the pandemic, what your triggers are, because they're different for everyone. I listed some potential ways that they might manifest, but when we can identify what our own triggers are, it can help us, again, I'm building that awareness of like, this is what I maybe do when things get stressful. And then we can develop strategies that are specific to your own needs. Some quick resources I'm going to share. If you're having a medical emergency, whether it's physical or mental health, call 911, call 988. That's a great resource. 988 is now a national number that is having local chapters, but and then if you need some additional mental health support in a crisis, there's some different numbers here. I know In Response is only really Santa Rosa, but if you happen to be in that area, it's a great program that I've been learning more about. They're deploying mental health professionals instead of police. And it's helpful for everyone, including the police. And then 211 during an emergency is a very helpful resource as well. So just wanted to list these. HeartMath, I'm a big HeartMath fan. I'm trained with them to be a HeartMath provider. It's very simple breathing techniques. They've got some free online classes. I think it's a great resource. I'm a big fan. They're super into the research. They've been doing it for over 30 years. They're based down in Boulder Creek in the Santa Cruz area. You can see the URL or QR code here. Healing Circles, this is a way to build community from your own home. This is all virtual. They're doing healing circles that are bringing people together, whether it's for disasters or any sort of life situations. There's groups for like women who want to connect with other women or a variety of things. You can check out their website, and it's a great way. They have just structured ways for people to connect online through like a Zoom platform. I love tapping. I'm a big acupuncture fan because it's helpful just to support our body through a different method of moving energy in our body. And so tapping, this is a great resource where you can learn how to do it yourself, especially during a disaster. We may not be able to go and see a provider. So this is a tool and resource that you can utilize on your own. I've done tapping to help move through some kind of stressful stuff, and it's a supportive tool. Check them out. This is my organization, Integrative Healers Action Network. We haven't had to run a clinic since 2020, which has been really nice. We do a lot of work mostly with firefighters now, but we partner with the Red Cross, and we set up integrative health clinics at Red Cross shelters. It's open to everyone. It's free. We offer things like massage, acupuncture, breathing, a variety of tools to just support the community. So even if you're not staying at the shelter, that's usually where we set up, just because we want to be somewhere where it's accessible, and a lot of people are. If you're not evacuated and you're needing support, just go to our website. We'll have it listed. And it's open to the public. It's open to anyone who needs it, and it's free. Oh, and that's it. So that's my email. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to be a resource for us in this community. And so I'm grateful to have this opportunity to share. And I'm going to pass it over to Diana.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Diana Borges. I am the community leader for Windsor COPE, and COPE stands for Communities Organized to Prepare for Emergencies. We are part of COPE Northern Sonoma County, which is a nonprofit organization. The program basically has steps for you as neighbors to work together to form your own community, the resources, know who needs help. A lot of it would be, as Jenny said, so having your own community when there's an emergency, people there for you. We have, I am the community leader, but then it really is facilitated by neighbors. So each neighborhood has a neighborhood leader that oversees about 10 to 20 people who helps organize, but then they're the liaison to me and then to Northern Sonoma County COPE, so we can have information passed down through distribute information. But I am also a professional geologist, and yes, that's me in there, even though you can't see. So this picture is actually from 1985. Before I retired, most of what I did was work on contaminated sites, investigating and cleaning up contaminated sites, soil and groundwater investigations. And so in the process, I have done a lot of air monitoring, hence why I'm doing Smoke Ready. So a lot of air monitoring to find out when we had to don respirators, find out if soil vapors were coming off gassing into buildings, things like that. So, what is wildfire smoke? Wildfire smoke is toxic to start with. It is basically anything that has gotten airborne from the source. So, wildfire smoke is a lot of gases, particulates. We hear about the particulates all the time, but really a lot of the things that also are in there, get out of your way, are the particles, chemicals also, depending on your source. So let's take a look at, there's a wildfire near the geysers out in just the wildland. Most of what that is burning is brush, trees, and things like that, right? But for the Tubbs fire that burned through town, think about everything that was in that mix. So all our household items, if there was an industrial facility that had petroleum products, solvents, so anything that got airborne into that air plume and has now migrated. And wildfire smoke travels a long distance. Jenny mentioned the campfire paradise. That thing traveled 3,000 miles that they could detect. And here we had hazardous levels in the air for several days. Who is most at risk? You can see the list there. These are the most vulnerable people, but every one of us actually is susceptible to the different conditions that it can cause. Health effects. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because my goal is not to delve into this. My goal more is to let you understand what the air quality levels are and how to protect yourself. But short term, it affects the eyes, nose, breathing. You can see there most of the things that happen. And it can happen like immediately when you go out, depending on how sensitive you are. Or it might take a few days for it to happen, or repeat exposure. Long term, a lot of different things. So our immune system can decrease. Heart failure due to stress, as Jenny was mentioned about how stressful this is. Our lung function, and it also can increase cancer risk, and especially as with a lot of our firefighters. Unfortunately, a lot of them get impacted by cancer from the exposure that they have fighting fires. Yes?
We had the fires here pre-COVID. So since COVID, we've all taken to wearing masks. Do masks help when there's bad air like this?
Yes, they will. I'll get into that. So air quality levels. Let me go over this. These are different categories that EPA has established. These are not concentrations, so these are not how much is in the air. These will always stay. They change the concentrations sometimes, modify them to when it is triggered. So right here, as I show, so the break here is 9 micrograms per cubic meter. The concentrations are in how much is in 1 cubic meter. Okay, that's what that is. The level before, a while ago, was 15. This year, they dropped it down to 9. So they periodically review that. And so each level here has a concentration that triggers going into that next level when they'll say, we're at this, we're at that, okay? This is based on 24-hour exposure. Now that's important to understand. in order to evaluate health effects, they have to come up with certain conditions factors. And one of them is always how long-term exposure, so acute, chronic exposure, different things. These are 24 hours. As you know, a lot of times we are much longer than 24 hours. And we're also repeat. So we've had 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020 of exposure to high concentrations of air quality, or poor air quality, which way you want to look at it. EPA and the powers that be say that when it gets down into the very unhealthy, we need to wear proper protection, an N95 mask, or you can also use a P100 mask. And what we are looking at here usually, as you can see at the bottom, is 2.5 micrometers of a particulate matter. That is smaller than your hair. We're talking very fine particulates in the air. That is what they're testing for. Personally, I am not comfortable putting on a mask at 200 anymore because of the repeat exposure. I put it on earlier. I kind of am looking at myself as in the unhealthy group, at least. When it's 150, I'm putting on a mask because these are 24-hour based. I have been exposed. My lungs have been compromised. I know that because of the levels that we've had here repeated periodically. So checking air quality, how do you know what's out there? You can go to purpleair.com. That's a private company, or you can go to airnow.gov. A lot of people go to Purple Air. I love Purple Air. You can see these are their maps. So over here, this is of Windsor from 2023. These all represent a sensor. These are color-coded to match that chart, right? And they actually have the numbers on there, so you can see what's going on. You can also, if you click on one of these, I don't know which one I clicked on, but anyway, a graph pops up and shows the concentration trend for where at that location. This one on EPA, the map doesn't show the concentrations. It does show the color, so it does give you a range. And it does, if you click on that one, right there, it does show your graph and that type of a thing. One thing I want you to be aware of on airnow.gov, they, in the past, on their map, all they showed was their sensor. Okay, this is the official government, and now everyone goes to airnow.gov. But AirNow only has one sensor in Sonoma County, and that's in Sebastopol. Okay, so that is not representative for us up in Windsor or northern Sonoma County. Most of our fires come from the northeast. So we're getting the plume, smoke, coming down from north. There's been times when we were at the point where we had to put on a respirator, but Sebastopol was fine because it didn't reach Sebastopol. So now, at least, airnow.gov does show, these are all Purple Air sensors, but when you go into another portion of that and you put in your zip code, it will pop up with the information, but what pops up is the Sebastopol information. So look at what you're actually getting, what information you're getting. Yeah.
So if you're local, we have sensors here on Huerta Gym, our Public Works Corporation yard, and our senior center. And I'm almost certain Vicki has one on this building as well. So if you're local and you're in this community, Purple Air will provide you your local stats. And two, when the air quality becomes unhealthy, the town will be pushing out messaging to assist you if you're unable to get to the purple air.
I like to use watch duty. Jenny mentioned watch duty. Everyone should have watch duty. For multiple reasons. They keep adding features on there for us to use. And these are all purple air information that they have. It's not updated as often as purple air. So if you want like a 10-minute reading, then you go to purple air. But this will give you information. You can also see where the plumes are. You can find out which way the wind's moving. So they now have all these little arrows. These are wind directions. Wind's going this way. The longer the line, the faster. The longer the line, the faster the wind. As opposed to, see this little guy here? So if the air is moving faster out there as opposed to some of the places. So the wind's moving this direction, the wind's coming upwards. So one thing I like about watch duty with the wind directions, I don't have to go multiple websites anymore, but if we're having a fire up here and we're down here, there are high concentrations here, I can look at, is the wind blowing from that coming down into us, or is it blowing the other way? So it gives me a kind of a heads up to know what to expect. I wanted to show you an example of what hazardous air could look like. This is from 2020 up in Willits. So we have had that orange glow here, unfortunately. It doesn't have to be that orange to have hazardous levels, but be aware, that besides just the density, cloudness, when it starts changing colors, we know we're in trouble. So what we can do, we need to protect ourselves, and the biggest part is when we get high levels, stay inside as much as you can. Do you really have to make that trip? A lot of times we don't. Call, change your appointment, eat the cereal instead, whatever it is. But check air quality, which what we did just said, but keep all your windows and doors closed. Something that has happened to me, I keep my window open at night sometimes, and then the wind direction changed, and when I woke up, it was time to put the air purifier in my bedroom. So kind of be aware of different things. If you have an air conditioner, you need to run it on recirculate. You don't want to pull outside air into your system. So have just the air going through your system. Use an air purifier, air cleaner. This says CARB certified, so like a HEPA filter on it. Don't add to anything in your home. Fry food, a candle. Don't add those vapors into your own system. And wear a mask. Now, like I said, N95 or P100 works, but they only work if you wear them properly. And I'll be honest, because I've been tested for a full face respirator, half face respirator. It really depends on how it fits your face. Certain models didn't fit mine. I couldn't get an airtight filter, airtight on there. Air takes the path of least resistance. So if there's a gap and you're breathing in, your air is going to be coming in through there. So you're still going to get some concentrations. So I have two different ones here I'll show you. For N95, there's, let me put this down. This one, which you're kind of familiar with, and then there's this one that actually has a check valve to breathe out. You need to put, as they show, the straps above, up here and down here, and make this tight. So I'll show you. And this, okay. I got hair, mask hair. Anyway, some of these are going to fit you better than others. And I actually have to get a better fit, even though they say that. I actually have moved my bottom strap up because it just fits better. So make sure you get an airtight fit as much as you can so that you won't be getting air sneaking in. A lot of times the nose, if it's not tight around the nose. I mean, I think we all experienced that in COVID, especially when we use the cloth mask, right? We had gaps here. You could feel there. Telltale sign is if you wear glasses and then you breathe, your glasses fog up. Well, that's where the air is coming in and out, right? So here are a few suggestions, and one of the big ones is you need to have the supplies before you need them. We all know 2017, you looked around, there were no N95 masks around. There weren't even cat carriers I looked for. Everything is gone, including gas, right? So have those supplies now before you need them. Air quality changes fast. So you need to find a sensor that's near you or a sensor that is actually located to where you're going. So you get an accurate reading for your location, because not only does it change fast, it can vary drastically area wide. Have at least one air purifier in the house. Maybe I have 3 actually. If you, on your vehicle, have your air conditioner on recirculate too, because you don't, same thing, want to bring in the air. And just because you get in the car doesn't mean the air in your car is safe yet, clean. You have to filter it through the car and then take your mask off. Your filters in the home and vehicle, you're going to have to change periodically. You know, if they're already spent and you're using them trying to filter out things, spent means no good. It's not going to filter properly for you. So we have, in this general area, we have 2 air boards. One is New Orleans, Sonoma County Air Pollution Control, and one is Bay Area Air Quality Control District. The border is just around Barata. You can visit their websites. There is a fire and smoke map from, if you go to airnow.gov, there's a lot of information. You can get to the map. So the map is nice because it shows you an overall plume of where that is. Actually, for the whole United States, you could go look. But if you're interested, how big is the plume in our area, you can go to the map and see where that is. If you want to make your own air purifier, you can do that. You just get a box fan and get a filter and put that on. So these are pictures from my house and things that I do. I want to show you. So, and if you're curious, the scientist part of me gets into data a lot, so just to let you know ahead of time. So I have this meter, which is, that's a newer version of what I have here. So I bought this, I don't know after which fire, but I have used this for multiple things, and I continue to bring it out every time there's smoke in the area. It's just, you turn it on and you can just walk around and you sit there and you wait until it has to equilibrate, calibrate it first. And then I just walk around and wait till it tells me, and it'll tell me how much 2.5 particulate matter is in the area right there. I have used it to find out that my floor vents were leaking. There was one in a bedroom that had like a 1/2-inch gap on it that I didn't know before because my house is older. Actually, only one side was still nailed, so I nailed it, and I have put aluminum foil around all the gaps on every floor vent. So not only is it going to help me with smoke sneaking in, but also the cold air. What I also started doing a long time ago was I have a small air purifier I put in next to the door when there's smoke. This is the door that leads out to my garage. And in my garage I have the car door garage, but then I have a person door that I go out of. So I use, like when I worked on contaminated sites, you have the hot zone, which is the high concentrations are outside. My garage is my intermediate, medium zone concentrations, and my house is my clean zone. So I go in and out of this door all the time when there's smoke. The air purifier, in theory, picks up the smoke and traps it there so it doesn't go with the rest of my house. And when I open the door, that's my only intermediate concentrations coming in. So it's not opening out to, like, say, the hazardous levels that are outside. But be aware, as soon as you open up your garage door to get your car out, well, you just have the same concentrations as before. So that's what I do for that. I've also weather stripped that door because I found out that was leaking some. I used this to also find out when it's time to open my windows. There's been times when maybe the concentrations outside were not great, but they were actually still lower than what I have in the house for some reason. So I opened up windows. I've used this to find out when to move my air purifiers around the house. They say set up a clean room in one part of your house, right? But we don't stay in one part of our house. We sleep in the bedroom, we go in the kitchen. So I've always, moving it around so my house is clean. It's never zero, I'll tell you that. Well, it's rarely zero. And this does have on here, you'll see at the top, the yellow, it shows moderate, but then it also gives concentrations down below. Let's see. What else do I have on here? So, ash. So ash is basically the big difference. It's larger particles than what we think of smoke. So these two pictures are from my house. The one over there on the left is Point Fire. That's the one Jenny was referring to up by Lake Sonoma. And then this is the wall ridge. So spider webs and a bowl of water trap all the ash and the smoke in there. It's really easy to see what's in the air. You stick out a bowl of water and the next day go out and you're going to see what has fallen from the air into the bowl. Be aware of that. It's going to be on everything outside. Your plants, what you walk on, if you let your pets out, everything out there is going to get dusted with all this stuff, even though you don't see it. So in order to, think about, you don't want to bring that inside. If you've been outside doing something, you don't want to bring it in. So take your shoes off. If you've been doing a lot, maybe take your clothes off in the garage or something. But just be aware of what you're doing out there and what you could be bringing back inside to your clean area. And when you're out there cleaning up, protect yourself. Gloves, a mask, things like that. And never use a leaf blower. You're just gonna get all that stuff airborne again. You're just gonna blow it into the street or into your neighbor's yard. And I wanted to end up with some Kincaid photos. These are all from my house. After Kincaid, we came back. Those leaves are not all from my yard, and I have no idea how far they came from. Same thing with the Wallbridge fire. I had leaves, burnt leaves coming in from, Wallbridge was west of here. So that stuff can travel very far. You can't see, you can see somewhat, but the map here shows you can see tiny little particles of things. That's everywhere. And I have to say I'm proud that I finally found a rubber mat that I liked, and so I do not have these combustible mats anymore that we're not supposed to have. I have rubber mats. And this chart shows, this was during the Kincaid fire levels that we had. So at 301 is hazardous levels. This is how high it got back in Kincaid. That is it. Are there any questions?